The following program does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Good afternoon and welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts Fred and Janet Cox right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board right now, send us an email. Our email address is liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your hosts of the Liquid Green Health Show, Fred and Janet Cox.
Yes, it's another Sunday afternoon. Great to be here. Welcome to all our listeners in Toronto. It's 5:30 p.m. Welcome to all our listeners in Toronto, across Canada, the United States, around the world. And thank you. Thank you so much for allowing us into your space. Welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show. Yeah. Today's show is sponsored by Liquid Green Products, producers of eco-superior green cleaning products for your home, office, or car. Pay us a visit at liquidgreenproducts.com, and you'll see all the wonderful cleaning products that you like there.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
When somebody goes to our website, we do have the Liquid Green Health Show listed there, correct?
Yes.
So if they just tune into liquidgreenproducts.com, shift down to the right a bit, then they'll see Liquid Green Products drop down bar, and then they'll be able to see all the different products, etc., that we talk about, right?
Yeah, and you just interrupted me, so continue. This is a live broadcast, and but if you want to see who is behind the voices, you can always find us on YouTube. Just punch in Liquid Green Health Show, hit like, share, comment, subscribe, all of those buttons. You know, by doing that, you'll give us a boost. And during our live broadcast, please feel free to write us at liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. Let us know where you're listening from. That will help a lot. And today's broadcast, folks, like all of our broadcasts, is for education and entertainment purposes only, designed to stimulate the mind and bring us one step closer to living a healthier lifestyle. Now, last week, you weren't here.
Right.
So I had to carry through the,
what time is it? 5:30. Yeah.
You were somewhere, I don't know.
I was at the Montego Bay Airport waiting to board my flight, right? Yeah. Actually, no, we were in air. We took off just about now.
Okay. So you were rushing back to be on the show, but you just couldn't make it.
And you know what? It's funny, folks. Airports, I don't know. Airlines, I don't know what's going on with airlines these days. But we were on a budget aircraft. I won't call the name, but it's a subsidiary of WestJet.
Just think of one of those budget aircrafts. Right?
And it wasn't my choice. But when you book, you get a return. You go on WestJet and you have no choice for the return.
Right.
But what happened is that I arrived at the airport and they said, there's nobody there. Oh, we sent you an email. But by the time I checked to see the email, I was already on the way because they say arrive 3 hours early. I was 5 hours waiting at the airport.
That's what happens when you're trying to fly cheap.
Thank God Fruity had made some fried chicken, which I had because they don't feed you on the airlines, not even water anymore.
The cheap ones.
And guess what? I almost missed that flight because I didn't hear the announcement and they changed the gates. And anyway, airports can be stressful.
Very stressful. Very stressful. So
and that's why our guest this week is going to do what he can to help us to talk about relieving stress as well, right?
So last week, I gave out a lot of good information on high blood pressure. I talked about how dangerous it can be if it's ignored, what steps to take once you find out that you have the condition. I even recommended some highly effective herbal remedies, and all that can be found at liquidgreenproducts.com. under the Health Show tab.
Okay.
Now, the month of November, for a long
before
time.
you
Recording stopped.
Yeah.
Before you continue, we have had several emails talking about your last week's show on blood pressure.
A lot of
information.
people really enjoyed that information.
Okay.
The month of November, as I've said, is designated
Diabetes.
as Diabetes Month,
Mhm.
right? And you know how important that is.
Yeah.
People that suffer from that condition, they need to know the dangers once you have it and the side effects that it can produce.
And even
right?
more important, we need to understand what can we do in terms of prevention.
Very important.
That I think
Preventative
is key,
care
right?
is is the key to it all.
Yeah.
You need to also understand the importance of cleansing and detoxification. And so today we are honored to have as our guest someone who I would honestly refer to as a walking encyclopedia when it comes to understanding the human body. And our guest today is here because as a result of a previous show that we've had
with Arlene.
And she spoke so highly about him, not just him, but the company that he represents and the products that they produce. And I was blown away with it. So we have this great opportunity to talk with this guest, and hopefully we can have him on a regular basis because there's a wealth of information that is out there. Right.
Agreed.
And so
who is our guest?
You do it.
Okay, Clyde. Our guest is Mr. Clyde
Harris. Yes.
And when we met Clyde, as you said, it was a result of having Arlene on the show. She talked so much about him. We felt there is no way we can go without meeting this gentleman.
Yes.
And Clyde, we want to welcome you to the Liquid Green Health Show. We know already, we've been warned that your time is limited. So we're going to go as quickly as we can to make sure we get in as much as we can before your next obligations, right? So now you were even so busy, we had to Google you to find out that you're an avid tennis coach. You hail from Guyana, and you're now one of the top executives. Well, I don't know if the proper word is executive, but you certainly keep the ball rolling at Great Green World. Can you fill in those gaps and tell us a little about yourself so that our audience can know who they're really talking with?
So I'll try to make it as, lucid as possible. First, my first profession was business. And as I told Fred, I had this amazing feel for business growing up as a young kid, see my father with a grade 10 education, build probably the #1 replicas of antique furniture.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yes, in the whole country. My mother was more like, she's a child psychologist. So she was a principal for a kindergarten school. Right? So I grew up seeing two different sides of the coin. One parent working, teachers they work hard. My mother used to say it's a vocation. And you live this life, but they're always underpaid, right? Then I grew up seeing a father, didn't have the opportunity, wanted to be a doctor, to first play soccer for the country and then build a formidable business, right? So I went on to high school, then on to work at age 18 because my father gave me an option to either study to be a lawyer. Mom wanted me to study to be a doctor with my science background. I wanted to work because I wanted to play tennis.
Okay.
So that's the option I had. I always wanted to work. Yeah. And then I worked. And my second year, there was an opening, but I learned banking, letter credit transaction, which is tariffs, international tariffs.
Okay.
And with Gladstone Critchlow, I did courses, university courses, because I was propelled to run a department with people 20 years older than me. I was now 20. So I started off as business.
Okay.
But as I continued to play tennis, I had this enormous propensity for natural. I never really can't remember growing up, even going to the doctor and having more than 2 or 3 medications. Okay. I just hated it. So throughout my whole life, I've been basically medication free.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So how did you get the wealth of knowledge that you have right now?
Well, as I said, it's a culmination of several things. I started because I had to do more courses in professional tennis. We got to learn physiology. We have to learn how the body works. We have to learn nutrition and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on to do evening courses at Harvard and then correspondence courses. And then I excelled and I got into York.
Okay.
But then my son was born, and because I went to study kinesiology and nutrition. Then my son was born, I was financing myself. I never went and got a student loan. And then I continue along looking for companies. And then I found people like Dr. Nye. He's now one of the 3 global professors on natural.
Okay.
And
natural medicine.
Yes, natural. He's a clinical person. I actually brought him to Green World.
Okay. So what we want to talk about today, we wanted to go through that. So when our listeners are listening to you, they know that you know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That this is not just, fly by night, hocus pocus,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, that you're the real McCoy, right? By the way, I want to shout out the real McCoy. I shouldn't tell you this, Clyde, but we had burgers from the real McCoy last night.
Oh, nice.
But,
They taste good after a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so today I should be cleansing because it was a lot of
You need to
gut,
get it out your
right?
system, right?
And that's the subject of today's talk.
Right. Cleansing and detoxification.
And Frederick, we know that there are certain things, like right now, you sent us a presentation, and I love the first slide because it says the most polluted environment in the Earth's history is happening right now.
We're living in it. We're
Right?
living in a
Mhm.
soup. We're living in a soup bowl of toxification.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
It
you know,
involves nuclear, the sea pollution.
sea pollution, nuclear pollution, chemical pollution.
Mhm.
You got air, and you have
Or food.
and electromagnetic.
Right.
All those things combined is causing so much havoc to the human body.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out a way how we're going to avoid. You can't avoid it, but you can control it.
Even when we barbecue, the
Okay.
remnants of the barbecue that is aluminum and lead.
Yeah.
Yes.
I send you the slide to show you each lead
Mhm.
and what aluminum does, and mercury from
Right.
our
But
company.
the first thing we want to ask you, the very first thing is, what are the signs within our bodies that we know we need to detox?
To detoxify our body.
Yeah. What are some of those symptoms that if
Some of those symptoms are bloating, for example.
Okay. Mhm.
We know that when we start bloating, we feel it. The gut health start to
Mhm.
erode. And we have symptoms of it. Change of coloring of the feces,
Mhm.
change in, because the lining is being damaged by pathogenic bacteria. Our body main composition from the ileum to the colon, 70% is microbes, the immunity.
Right.
So we get signs of that. I actually was talking to a young lady in New Brunswick last night. She's a personal trainer with a nutritional background. She has diverticulitis.
Diverticulitis.
So I was explaining to her what's going on in her body symptoms, and right away she came on. The person who brought me as a third party, she had problems with ovarian cysts. So now she feels confident that she's eliminated it, the problems, the symptoms. So she's turning to other people with other symptoms.
Right.
And the main thing is inflammation. We have acute inflammation. We have chronic inflammation, build-up of it. So when I finished talking to her, she came on the Green World website and bought over $300 worth of product. It's that simple, because knowing the symptoms. We eat food high in fat, like you did last night.
Yes, and enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's always the bad things that is bad.
It tastes good.
It tastes good, but it's bad.
Yeah.
We
Right.
eat sciences. We eat lots of processed foods.
Too much. Well, yeah.
Now,
Even some of the signs are even irritability. People just get irritated easily. Mood swings. These are different stress itself that you talked about. These are some of the signs that we reacting easily to things, and there's signs that there's buildup of toxins in the body.
Okay.
Now, I know from listening to other people talk, other homeopathic first people talk about digestion, and one of the things that they mention is not chewing your food properly, because digestion starts in the mouth, right? Not chewing the food properly, that too can cause acid buildup, right? It can cause improper digestion, right? And as a result, your tummy feels overloaded. Like, I mean,
Right.
you look at some people eat and they just gobble down the food, and you want to know,
Yes.
how do they feel after?
How important is that, Clyde?
That's very important because you're supposed to chew more than 36 times before you digest it. We see people gobbling everything down, right? You want to break it down. So it has this salivary glands does a lot of work in removing pathogenic. So let's look at that, right? Before it gets into the esophagus. So that is so important.
I have
so
a
we
question.
tend to,
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, finish up.
So we tend to see a lot of people eating very fast, not breaking down the food properly, and then it start interfering with other parts of the body. Like
now, two things. When you go to a restaurant, what's the first thing they give you? Water.
Right.
But now, the second thing is the school I went to, Westwood. I talk so much passionately about my school, but we were told not to drink before we eat. But yet you go to a restaurant and the first thing they do is give you water. Is there one right way or wrong way? What's the proper protocol in approaching?
Well, I worked with Dr. Ilona Ross, who was the best advocate for eating healthy. I spent a lot of time with her. I remember she brought her to the company. She's a naturopathic, homeopathic doctor, Jewish cult, Russian background. And if you look at the old culture, the Indian, the Chinese, the Japanese, what do they give you? They give you something warm first. Because as opposed to eating something cold, where you got more constriction, you remember you have to get gastric juices, like in the jejunum, the part where the vagus nerves gives a signal to secrete gastric juices, in that is amylase, protease, lipase, to break down the three different groups of food. So Dr. Ilona Ross used to say, think about this. In our body, we got high blood lipid, right? This is part of digestion. You have more activity. That's why we tend to tire. Remember, after we eat, we tend to tire because there's a lot of activity, metabolic activity.
Yes.
So what do they do first? The Japanese and those cultures, they drink warm to dilate the stomach wall.
The Egyptians too, the Eritreans,
Right, the
those
Eritreans,
cultures,
right.
yes, they also do. The Sudanese.
We tend to drink cold.
Yeah.
That constricts the stomach wall. So she used to use a physical example. She said, put cold water on oil. That's the blood lipid. It solidifies.
Yes.
If you put warm water, it dilates. Now you got to remember something. Fat is dense.
Yeah.
Fat is 1 gram of fat equal 9 calories, as opposed to 1 gram of protein and carbohydrate, which is just 4 calories.
Okay.
It is harder to break down fat.
Okay.
Right?
Is that the good fat or the bad fat or any fat?
Well, the good fat, our body needs a little bit of fat for transportation of fat-soluble vitamins,
right,
and minerals, and for structural composition, maybe 10%. But the good fat is good, the HDL, high density. But we tend to eat more fatty foods. We are fat, and we are mammals.
Because
so
it
when
tastes...
we oxidate,
Right, so foods, yes.
Right, the right foods. There's the good fat, the
Avocados.
Right, that is polyunsaturated. That's omega-6. It
Okay.
is relevant. So you need the good fat, like omega-6. You call it polyunsaturated or linoleic acid.
Okay.
But you need also to use that in moderation. It should be 1-to-1 ratio,
Okay.
which is omega-3, which is the fatty acid, which the acid is EPA, DHA, DPA, to 1 linoleic acid or polyunsaturated. We tend to North America to eat more of it. That's why when vegetarians came to me and we treated them, they had fibroids.
Okay.
They had a high level of inflammation in the body because those fats,
Yes.
which is monosaccharide and disaccharide, which is fruits and vegetables. Fruits is mono because the glycemic index, the chain is 1. So it's easy to break down and turn into anything fructose or sucrose turns into glucose anyway.
Okay.
Right.
And the problem they face without the 1-to-1 ratio, which is they have high glycemic index is high.
Okay. Right.
It's like you're drinking pop, and that turns into inflammation eventually. That's how we get diabetes.
Yeah. I feel as though I'm in a class here. I'm being schooled.
Nutrition.
Right? This is powerful stuff. I hope our listeners have pen and paper that
we
they
have
can
a few
take down.
emails coming. We're going to start reading them in a minute.
Okay.
But we're talking about the brain fog, right?
Yeah.
That's one of
we're talking here today, folks. If you're joining us for the first time, this is the Liquid Green Health Show. Our guest is Clyde Harris, and he is a health consultant with the company Green World. That is a pharmaceutical company, but they focus mainly on natural products to bring to the world. And today we're discussing specifically, we're talking about cleansing and detoxifying your body.
Okay. And Clyde, I have about 3 questions and I don't want to forget them.
You just said with brain fog.
Yeah, brain fog is one. And then I want to talk about kids. Like, should everybody be detoxing, especially children? And is there anyone who really should not be doing this because of health reasons or, so start with the brain fog.
I think everybody this is the perfect time, as you said. It was like so spiritual. You said you ate bad, but you feel actually during fall, we're going into winter, where we're less active. And one of the things we don't realize that it's a holistic approach we teach. We just can't use food as medicine. That food is your medicine, because you need to move.
Okay.
The blood transports all the nutrients and the oxygen around the body to the cells to rejuvenate and repair. So before we go into the winter period, we need to detox.
Okay.
Because most of us would be less active. We don't cycle anymore. We don't walk anymore during the winter.
Well,
and
not for everybody. We have some diehards, but the majority, I know I cut down after a while, after the warm weather. Yes.
Right. But you don't sweat because the metabolic rate is lower during the time. So you don't sweat unless you're doing some physical activity, like going into the gym. And so
correct.
There's a buildup of toxins. People, there's no difference between gut health. And I learned it more specifically after COVID, when I put 25 pounds on my gut. I used to play tennis for hours without getting tired. I now couldn't even breathe when I was running a lap.
Wow.
Because the buildup of toxins affects the kidney and the liver, and the liver, which is the 2 main organs for detoxing the blood.
Right.
And it happens so quickly, and it takes so long to get rid of
it.
You know?
Right.
It was like terrible for everybody.
Yeah.
So is there anybody, what about children?
And so let me go back to the fogginess.
Mm-hmm.
What we've learned over a period of time, and I could use my son as an example, but I could use so many kids as an example, because I work with kids who are autistic, and we get the hell back. Myself and Dr. Warner went into this one of the girls who had cancer, a rare form of cancer. She's supposed to die from skin cancer. She was wearing an oxygen tank. So she had a high level of toxicity. So that's all. What had happened, she wasn't metabolizing protein in the blood.
Okay.
Because there's two proteins in the blood, albumin and globin.
Right.
And that means she had a buildup of toxins in the body. She's not breaking down food. So the blood viscosity was high, meaning the thickness of the blood is like water running down from a mountain, then it picks up sediments at the side of the. Now it gets stagnant.
Yeah.
So that's why we talk a lot about in traditional Chinese medicine. We talk about qi, energy. Qi energy means flow. So this buildup of toxins affects the brain.
Okay.
It affects almost everything because it affects the lung. It affects the organ that has to filter almost everything liquid. Enzymes, hormones, that's the kidneys, a dynamic organ. It filters 25 liters of water per minute.
Right.
So you got a dynamic organ now, it's congested, it has a buildup of toxins in it, and then it releases the uric acid. So learning more about our body and the type of foods we should eat and how to keep these organs clean is why
Great.
Learned for 10 years with Greenwood.
Correct. And you said the liver is the main organ, but there's the kidneys, the colon, what are the others? The other organs that really.
So there's the kidney, the liver, the kidney, don't forget the respiratory system.
Right.
And the skin.
Yeah.
Because the skin helps when you sweat. Two things you see coming out of the body when you touch your sweat. It's fat, excess blood lipid, which is basically lactic acid from the metabolic processes, and salt. You need salt is an electrolyte, but if it retains water, you can get trouble over a period of time.
Okay. So the liver, can you talk to us about the importance of the liver as the number one organ, you say, for detoxing and for diabetes month? This is so critical. And then after this, we get some emails, right?
Yeah.
So let me just share with you some liver processes. Liver turns glucose into glycogen.
Right.
To be stored in the liver and the muscle, to be reconverted. So we need glucose for the cell needs energy. So it's metabolized by insulin, right? Another thing you must understand, we overeat. So the glucose also processes fat and protein. It takes protein. We need protein for structural composition, but we need it for the most important thing.
Energy.
The building is to build amino acids.
Okay.
Which is the building block. So the liver, protein is broken down in the liver. You call it through deamination. And then it turns into amino acids, which is the building block in the body. But if you don't have the relevant food groups to break the protein down, like niacin, riboflavin, B2 and B3, which are water soluble, it's not retained in the body, because when you lose water, you lose B's and C's, which is an electrolytes.
Okay.
So it causes high level of urea, nitrogen, which is a gas that damages the kidney now.
Okay. Now, one of the things we see the sport athletes and we see these drinks, the electrolyte drinks. I know even my daughter, I saw her giving, my little grandson is in track and they give him, I forget the brand, but it's some form of electrolyte. What's your take on that? Could you explain to our listeners?
So I never liked, because it's just a sales thing. When we lose water, we lose something that is essential to be conducted in water, which is electrolytes. It's only going to be conducted in water, so we tend to lose it. Like magnesium, for example. Magnesium converts glucose into energy. That's why we need, it's a coenzyme, basically. When it's converted to energy, we need transferal now, right, of oxygen. And you have potassium. When your body lacks potassium, that's where Arlene was learning, your body tends to overheat, right? it needs calcium. You need these are macronutrients that the body needs. It needs it in higher numbers. So when you do, they give you like a Gatorade. The Gatorade is loaded mostly with sugar.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have a proliferation of diabetes. Because, as I said, high levels of sugar in the blood, one of the symptoms, the kid gets lots of energy, and then there's a collapse of energy.
Okay.
Right? That is show that the high level of sugar is hypoglycemic. Eventually, it turns into inflammation. And by turning into inflammation, type 2 diabetes, diabetes mellitus, is basically caused with inflammation buildup and the cell that cannot open. You call it cell resistant.
Okay, so should they just be eating a banana? Is that just as good? I know that banana is high in potassium, right?
Or drink water.
Banana is high in potassium, but we have learned from traveling a lot is that that's why you have a soil, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you created. Remember, because there's a depletion in soil.
Right.
Yes.
The rain has become more acidic because the rain you have precipitation from the earth back into the clouds. That's how clouds are formed, right? And now there's a lot of toxicity in the earth. So the rain water is not the same like 100 years ago.
Like 50 years ago. No.
So that rain comes back and damages the soil and depletes it. So if you grow banana in a potassium deficient soil, you won't have potassium. That's why we go to things like spirulina.
Mm-hmm.
It is tested and much more tested. And in that spirulina is 8 times more potassium than bananas.
Okay.
And the beauty about it is that over a period of time we have blockages. I see so many people have blockages from the top half, the duodenum, right through to the gut. And the blockages of the villi, which is the capillaries that where the food is broken down and liquidated.
Right.
And then it goes into the bloodstream for nutrients. Okay. You see blockages all the time. So as we age, we got more catabolism, more depletion of enzymatic production, and we got blockages. So things like spirulina is an algae. It has permeability. Just like you put in water, it penetrates any soil.
So it's fertilizer for the gut.
Right, it's fertilizer.
Yes.
Okay.
It gives you all the nutrients you require. Yeah.
But would you give that to a kid? Spirulina? Well,
I started giving it to my son. My son, that's the best clinical aspect. And I've worked with a lot of kids. I gave it to a 6-year-old kid recently in Texas that has autism and also seal oil, the combination of both.
Okay.
My son was 7.5 when I started giving him spirulina. He was a 6th average. He was dyslexic. He was asthmatic. He was ADHD. He was a 6th average.
Okay.
So the observation is after I started giving him spirulina, he used to take it in the morning after we have breakfast. He would take 2 and 2. And then later on, he would take cordyceps. I'll tell you what the cordyceps does later on. That's a 7.5. By the time my son reached 8, he was the brightest kid throughout his whole life in high school.
I thought that was because he took after his father.
It's the nutrition.
Anyway, we're gonna have a little break here, and we do have a couple of emails.
Yeah. One of our guests, one of our listeners, his name is Tim, and he's asking, and Clyde, I don't know if you want to answer this question, but he's asking, how old is your guest?
That's the multi-million
question. How old is your guest?
Yes. How old is our guest?
But we can't ask them to guess.
Yeah.
So ask him how old he thinks I am.
It's an email. Not sure if they're going to respond right away.
Is he seeing me?
No, he won't be able to, but they're corresponding. The way things are set up, they can only correspond via email. But I'm certain that they are listening to us. They can hear us.
Tell him your guess is, at this age, people are lying in the bed. I can hit the tennis ball for 8 hours straight at the fast pace.
Okay, so Tim, that's your answer, right?
I used to have a friend. She would say over 60 and under 80. Are you in that bracket?
Yes.
You're over 60, under 80.
Not over 60, but on the 18th. Just
Okay, here's another email. Hello, Fred and Janet. Another amazing show today. I am learning so much. Does your guest have a website? And yes, we do, and we'll give that out to you.
They can actually go to the Liquid Green.
Yeah, you go to the Liquid Green Health, the Liquid Green
products.
Yeah, go to liquidgreenproducts.com. Click on the tab that says Health Show. Scroll down, and you'll see the products there.
Supplements, right? That's where you have the
supplements and teas, and
that will take you into that website.
Yeah,
correct.
Okay, and I'll give it out a little later as well.
And Anne also said, "Hello, Cox, is Janet." Oh, thank you, Anne. So sorry to hear about your travel mishap. That is horrible. I do agree, but love your guest. So let's get back to Clyde Harris.
Here's one from Thomas from Mason. Can you read that one there for me?
Hello,
please?
Fred and Janet. Another amazing show today. I am learning so much. That's the one you just read.
Oh, that's the one I just read. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And we will give out the website a little later in the show. So keep listening. Thank you. Thank you for those emails. What do you want to ask?
Okay. We want to move on to, we were talking about the liver and the role it plays, right? But the kidney, one of the things you talk a lot, or I hear so much about triglycerides, and I need to be more educated as to what exactly that is and how it plays a role in all of this. Could you talk to us a little bit more about?
And that's a function of
how
the liver as well,
liver
right?
helps to to detoxify triglycerides.
All right.
First of all, what is triglycerides?
So that's a nice one. Dietary carb. What's her name? Oksana tell me it's closing time now. So give me a couple minutes. Yeah. Triglycerides are dietary fiber increasing. Is a combination of everything that is in excess. Glucose, high blood levels, lipids, which is fats, turns into triglycerides, which is basic simplified, which is a base. Tri means three.
Yes.
So it means everything that is in excess turns into fat.
Okay.
And then you could have, that's why you also have, that's where you have LD, very low density lipoprotein.
VLDL.
Yes, VDL. Yes, right.
Okay.
So everything in your body turns into excess, turns into fat.
Right.
And that's why you need the bile. The bile breaks everything down.
Right.
If it's not broken down, because it's dense, fat is dense, as I told you, then you would have it having to find something, and most times it finds a muscle tissue. That's why I have adipose tissue. It deposits it into a tissue, and that's
how do you say? Is it bilirubin or bilirubin?
Bilirubin.
Okay, and that is to do with the bile.
Bilirubin is stored in the spleen. It's a protein pigment in the spleen.
Okay.
And the spleen main role is two things. Spleen main role is, the spleen is a derivative of the thymus. It is branched out into the white blood cells, which is tissue fluid, the blood plasma. And then after the age of 12, then into the epithelial cells, which is the spleen. Okay. That's why the spleen plays a role. The spleen has the highest levels of iron. It stores more iron.
Okay.
And it stores red blood cells, because red blood cells actually matured in the spleen. That's why the doctors say you need B12.
Right.
It's for the spleen. And the spleen main work is not the number one organ. It's the largest organ in the immune system. It's to detoxify the blood from carbon debris and things like that, or pathogenic problems.
Okay.
Which is bacteria or viruses. That's the spleen main work.
Okay.
So without a spleen, we get problems.
Major.
Because spleen is part of the immune system. The main composition of the thymus, which is, I tell you, the spleen descends into the epithelial cells after the 8. So before 12, you don't have an immune system, basically.
Okay.
So because later on, an immune system is a medication with blood, which is produced in the bone marrow.
Okay.
So you asked me a question. You talked early on about puffy eyes. Puffy eyes relates to the spleen, liver, because the liver holds the largest reservoir of blood. And also the liver detoxes red blood. Every 120 days, they remove iron from the red blood cells. Right?
Okay. What about, we talk a lot about the red blood cells. What about the white blood cells? I know those are the fighter cells that you need to have.
So the fighter cells are, right, it's part of the lymphatic glands. It's produced in the lymph nodes.
Okay.
Right? When you have this, we call it stimulation or irritation in first your nose, you might get, the virus might hit the nose. That's how you know that there's viruses all the time around.
Like COVID, like, you know, that's what we hear so
any
much about.
pathogenic environment, you have proliferation, even in this room.
Right.
They brought you into this room, and this room has more, your body is made up of negative and positive.
Yes.
It has more cat ions, which is bad for you. It attracts bacteria. You can't get bacteria in an environment like the lakes or the forest, the rainforest or things like that. You can't get a virus.
Okay, because it's a natural
environment, and it doesn't survive in an alkaline state. That's why tourmaline is one of the things. Tourmaline is the air vitamin.
Okay.
That's with the environment.
Okay. So this fear that the bacteria is out there in the natural environment is just it's a myth, because the natural environment has means of breaking down and destroying these bacteria. It's indoor surroundings.
It's an alkaline state. Yeah. That's what tourmaline is about. Tourmaline is an air vitamin. You only get it in those environments, natural habitats.
Okay. Now, Clyde, I know we told you the time goes so fast. I know Oksana is rushing to get out because she's managing your IT right now. I want to get one more question in.
And because you did it on an impromptu basis, that I couldn't get home because the lessons I had was already.
We're glad we caught you.
Yeah. In just a couple more minutes before you have to go, and I'm losing my train of thought, but. I wanted to ask you about, oh boy, I should have written it down. I forgot.
Was it the liver?
It is to do with the liver. Oh, yes. With the products. Can you tell us about what is the main product?
Yes.
If somebody's listening today, we have not gotten very far, but you're going to be back over and over and over again, because we're going to get through the whole body with you. Yeah. Right? But which of the products would you recommend for the detoxification of the liver? I know there's a tea and there is something else.
So I would recommend, if it's for the liver alone, but we like to do the whole system, because one of the things we learn is in traditional Chinese medicine, which is a 5,000 years history, is that no system is separate. They're all interrelated. So I would say first product for detoxing the liver is chitosan for the whole body.
Okay.
Chitosan,
how do you spell that?
How do you spell that?
Chitosan.
Okay.
Chitosan. The Japanese call it chitosan. But it's a 2,000-year-old product produced by the Chinese. The chi, the fiber from the crab, the exoskeletal feature of the lobster, clings on to heavy metal and blood lipid. So for people who are using medication over a period of time, the liver would be damaged. It has to filter medication.
Correct. That's a fact.
And the liver enzyme would be damaged for detoxification. We see that all the time, right? Because the liver does 500 functions. It needs 500 enzymatic functions, right? So that's why we get a fatty liver, accumulation of many different factors. So chitosan, what makes us chitosan different than the chitosan you could buy from Amazon.com, which is it's created 2,500 years. is that they have a chitosan that says for removing fat absorption. So it removes blood lipid and heavy metal. Our chitosan, we add bamboo vinegar, which flushes the circulatory system. We see all the problem in the circulatory system. Whether it's a congestive heart failure comes from the kidney, cholesterol crystal, a buildup of crystal, which is only recent study by the University of Michigan, 2010, and expanded in 2017. So one of the guys we treated for congestive heart failure is because we know we had to tackle the kidney for it, because the kidney impacts diet, urinary, as well as reproductive system, and all of that is part of the digestive system. PID, pelvic inflammatory disease. So then we add chitosan, start repairing the liver and even binding the toxins from the kidney into one. And then it works for the colon too. It blows up in the colon. What makes it powerful? We add also we add the ions to attract the bad ones, right? To attract everything. And it detoxes even, one of the biggest problems when people don't understand, the lymphatic glands is like your river. When it's blocked, lymphedema, where we check people, now you got different organisms working in lymphatic glands, like the macrophages. They're organism that keeps it clean, so that you can have an easier transmission of other things to your white blood cells, right? So, which is producing the lymph node. So chitosan, because we add vitamin B, vitamin C, negative ions, bamboo vinegar, and the chitosan itself, right? The method that we use to deacetylation, remove the toxicity of it. It's a method, a high technology to do that. It destroys, it repairs. Basically, it brings every organ back into equilibrium, balance, homeostasis, they call it. It repairs the organs. If you got, let's say, bubbles on you, like a gastric ulcer. The chitosan will remove it. Let's say it's a benign tumor. And I like to say, if you get a bone, you see the pop, the little pop. That is your blood plasma, right? Chitosan, that is what's happening in the body with inflammation. It's pops of these blood plasma. And then if it becomes more toxin, then you have a cancer, right? Toxicity buildup.
But you also... Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. I'm just...
So chitosan destroys that first. And then it repairs the organ.
Now, you also said people have to be aware that you can't take this on a long-term basis, correct?
Right. That's what exactly happened to Fred. We put you on a 7 days detox. Fred could talk about it.
And he decided to overkill.
I did an overkill, man.
Right. Because we see this all the time, Dr. Watt is laughing.
So I'm clean, folks. I'm clean.
That's why it looks so good.
That's why it looks so good.
Now you need to use...
Sorry, go ahead. I want to thank you because I know
we know that
I know in
there's
the background
there's a time constraint here. But you just mentioned one product for the detoxification.
I just mentioned the other one.
Yeah.
The other one is intestinal cleansing tea. For fatty liver, you can lose lipid tea, but first you want to go and give the nutrients. So intestinal cleansing tea has remnants of spirulina, and it has other things to remove the buildup of toxin that blocks the villi. You can't, that's why people just get a fat gut, a big gut, because they're not breaking down food. They're not moving food.
Okay. Well, there is so much.
And
we have just skimmed the surface.
Yes.
We can't do anymore because it's 20, and I know Oksana has to go, and Clyde has another, you
has
have
another
appointment.
I think we've held him over his time.
Right.
And Clyde, we're going to continue this conversation at another time. We have to have you back because, as we said earlier, the wealth of information that you have, we cannot do it in an hour, right? So you definitely will be back on the show as quickly as possible so we could continue this conversation on detoxification, because it is such an important topic.
And listen, Cindy, a quick email I'll read before you leave, Clyde. She says, hello, Janet and Fred. Wow, I am, and she stresses the am in big bold. I am getting a medical degree today from your show. Excellent. Thank you very much for the free education.
Yes.
So, Clyde, thank you so much.
And that's what this show is all about. As I said earlier, we are purveyors of education, and we look for the best possible.
The best and the brightest.
Yeah. And I got to say something. We always bothered about disseminating information. We always, when we started this, our biggest problem was how could we disseminate the information? So we must thank you too, because the information, some of it is relevant. There's a lot of students studying from all over the world who could afford it. Biotech, bioengineering, biochemistry. What you're doing, you're disseminating the information that they're studying, but we're producing the products like yourself, what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? Sorry, I do this all the time.
The people who are most affected is the impoverished people. They don't have this, and they don't have access to the information.
They don't have the knowledge and the access.
And I wanted you to point out the fact that Great Green World, it's you did mention it. It's a pharmaceutical company.
It's a pharmaceutical company.
Although they deal with a natural product.
So let me just share some of the things why it's a pharmaceutical company.
Okay.
Every 7 years, we get to see that when we travel to and we do that. There's no thing. The FDA does not certify anything that is nutritional. We know that our body plant needs 9 micronutrients to survive. Our body needs 14. Later on, we could discuss that and the 14 and how it works. But what makes it a pharmaceutical? Let's look at Ganoderma Plus. One of the things that I told you that 8 years ago, I introduced Ganoderma to people, which is an elixir of immortality. You can live very long. Is that the tritipenoids is medicine. It is the longest chain of phytochemicals. That is one of the things the world knows that shrinks the cancer cell. There's lots of studies around the world, clinical studies to show that.
Great.
So in the product, we have to list what's in the ingredients in it that impacts the body, gives it back its health. Like cordyceps, opiocordyceps, remove inflammation from the body.
Okay.
Right. So,
all right. Great. So we had a quick introduction, and we're going to say thank you. And we know you have to go. Frederick, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Clyde, I cannot say how thankful we are to have you on this show. You have graced us with
a lot of information,
an abundance of information.
And on a personal note, we have started taking, like for the last, I even had stuff I took to Jamaica. And I know that after I went swimming and all the other healthy things I did, I was making sure to take some of the products that you mentioned.
They're wonderful, wonderful products. And all of these products that are mentioned can be obtained if you went to the liquidgreenproducts.com website. You go to the tab that says Health Show, and you scroll down, you're going to find supplements and natural teas. Click on that, and all the products are there that we're talking about, folks. These are wonderful, tested products done by a pharmaceutical company that is focusing especially on natural products. So these are not
food as medicine.
Yeah, right? These are not synthetic products. These are 100% pure natural products that the body will recognize once you take it.
Almost as good as liquid green products, right?
Almost as good. Almost as good. So, Clyde, once again, we'd like to say thank you. I'm going to be talking to you after the show, of course. I'll be visiting your office to get some more.
And Fred, you look good. You take the detox, you went over your time, but all your face.
Oh, man.
You get like a baby.
I'm telling you, listen, I started taking it. I started taking it like 3 weeks ago. But I found out just 2 days ago that I was taking it too long.
Yeah.
Right. And I need not to. And then you explained to me the effects
and that's
of
why we have to work with the health practitioners.
Yes.
Because some people will drink, some of those teas and they'll just continue.
But they're wonderful.
We
They
need to
really,
hear
really
from-
make you look good, and you feel better. So
hey, what about me? I hear Fred, you look good. What about Janet?
You gonna look young. You gonna see couple mornings. Just be consistent, and then we can show you even to reverse aging, which
Right.
means the gray hair.
You
If
mean
you look at the Asians, gut health is important for that, and the pillows antler if it's used consistently.
really?
So
You
if
mean
you
there's
want
hope for gray hair? But I love
Oh,
my
yeah.
gray
I
hair.
love my gray hair.
to, yeah,
I love my
and this shows you're wise. You're wise anyway with the gray hair.
All right.
Okay, so
great.
thank you
All
once
right.
again. Thanks you once again,
Thanks.
Clive. We're going to be catching up. We're going to continue this conversation
Mhm.
at sometime pretty early in the future. We are going to be having you back for sure. All right.
Thank
so
you.
with that, have a wonderful evening.
You too,
Okay.
friend and
Right.
Janet. Thanks again
You're
for
Yeah.
giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. So, folks, you're listening to us. If you have joined us, you just came on and you're not quite sure what it is we're talking about. We've just had a lecture in detoxification.
Beginning
Right? The
of
beginning
detox. Because
of
we
many
haven't
to come.
scratched the surface. We
Right.
really haven't.
And
Right.
wow, what a wealth of information, what a wealth of knowledge. And, I think he's a doctor.
He sounds like a doctor,
Yeah,
right?
the man is well versed. So,
Okay.
again,
But then
all of
let's
the
let us
products.
say that
Yeah.
you should. I mean, we talk
No,
about
we're
the
not
pers-
doctors.
Right, we're not, and
Right.
we're never saying anything negative because no matter what, you need those hospitals. We need
And
those
if
doctors.
you're taking your
right?
medication, folks, we're not advocating to get off your medication because you're hearing of these products. So let's
Right,
make that
right, yeah.
clear.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
Stay on your medication. But if you would like to try something that
Mhm.
is natural, that have been tested and proven to work,
Yeah.
because it is done from
Work in
pharmaceutical co-
conjunction
yeah.
with, because I think you need
You need both.
You need to hear from the machines and what
Yeah.
needs to be done, and then you work naturally
And then
see
you work the
how
natural
to
thing.
bring
So
your
right.
life
So
back,
these
right?
products, as I've said earlier, they all can be had from visiting liquidgreenproducts.com. Click on the health show tab, and when it drops down, that's a drop down window. You scroll down and you go to supplements and natural teas, and
Okay.
all the products are there.
So
right.
next week, are we safe to say if Clyde has time, we'll bring him back to
If
complete
Clyde has
this?
time, we definitely going to bring him back to complete
Clyde?
this. Clyde, rather. We definitely will be bringing him back to continue this conversation. We gave him short notice this
Yeah.
time, but he's done a wonderful job.
Yeah,
Right?
because we really have to finish up with the kidneys and
Yeah. There's more to
respiratory system.
detoxification than what he
Yeah.
has said to us. He sent
Okay.
us a lot of information here. We're going to peruse it and then, get him back on the show.
Okay.
And there are lots of products that this company carries, and we will be, talking about these products as time goes on. We're running into that time where we have to close things up. Anything else you want to say?
Yes, there is somebody that was introduced to me in Jamaica,
Mhm.
and he is a specialist with gut health.
Oh, yeah.
And as they say, the gut it's a Clive, not a Clyde, but it's a Clive.
Oh, okay.
And at some point, we're going to try to bring him on as well.
Yeah, it would be
right?
nice if we can have him on. So he's going to be talking about the gut
Gut.
biome.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
That will be, I don't know exactly when, but we'll keep our
Okay.
listeners
Keep you posted.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you've missed any of our shows, you can listen or watch them on the following platforms: YouTube. You can also, catch us on Spotify, and we're also on Facebook. If you go to YouTube, just like us,
Subscribe and share.
do whatever it is to boost our listener, our viewership.
Yes.
And as we come to the end of the show, we always like to end our show by saying, good health is central to human happiness and well-being because it contributes significantly to prosperity and wealth and even economic progress. And as healthy individuals, there's a good chance that we can be more productive and we may even live a lot longer. Right? You want to say anything about that?
No.
No?
One thing I want to say is you talk about it's contributing to prosperity and wealth, right?
And good health.
And good health. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
But we won't get into it right now.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about some ways that you can actually have the wealth so you can afford to stay healthy. Because even buying good food is not cheap.
Costly. No.
Right?
And so, folks, until next Sunday, same time, same station, this is Janet and Fred saying, let's stay healthy. Right here on Reality Radio 101.
Thank you for listening to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts, Fred and Janet Cox, right here on Reality Radio 101.